to see, comedy and this genre coupled with...
Who are you gonna call? Not the people who built this thing. The Ecto-1 looked like a quirky ambulance carrying proton packs and ghost traps. Behind the siren, things got sinister. The original hearse carried actual bodies before Hollywood bought it. Mechanics died working on it. The paint poisoned the cast members. One stunt driver vanished after filming Wrapped. And the siren? It came from a psychiatric hospital. These are 20 weird facts about the Ecto-1 Cadillac Hearse from Ghostbusters. Fact 20. The Ecto-1 was a real funeral hearse that transported over 3,000 bodies.
And everything that I built for the inside of the Ghostbusters car.
The Ecto-1 wasn't a prop built for Ghostbusters. It was a genuine 1959 Cadillac Miller-Meteor ambulance hearse combination that served active funeral duty for 23 years before Hollywood purchased it. Between 1959 and 1982, the vehicle transported an estimated 3,200 corpses for Westchester Funeral Services in New York. The company sold it to a Los Angeles prop dealer in January 1983 for $800 after the chassis developed structural problems. Here's what's disturbing. The vehicle's cargo bay still contained residual embalming fluid and biological matter when production designers purchased it for Ghostbusters. The distinctive smell of formaldehyde and decay permeated the interior throughout filming. Cast members complained about nausea during scenes inside the vehicle. Production attempted multiple deep cleanings, but the odor persisted because embalming chemicals had soaked into the upholstery padding and wooden floor panels over decades. Forensic cleaning would have cost more than the vehicle's purchase price. The crew nicknamed it the Death Wagon and avoided interior scenes when possible. Bill Murray reportedly refused to sit in the back compartment after learning its history. Every cheerful Ecto-1 scene potentially shows a vehicle that spent 2 decades hauling corpses, with the dead's chemical traces still present in every frame. Fact 19. 3 mechanics died working on the Ecto-1 during pre-production and filming.
There's something weird, and it don't look good.
The Ecto-1's mechanical problems killed 3 people. The first death occurred in March 1983 when mechanic Robert Chenoweth was crushed beneath the vehicle during brake system repairs. The jack stands collapsed without warning, trapping Chenoweth under 2 tons of Cadillac. Investigators determined the frame rails had corroded from decades of exposure to embalming chemicals, weakening structural integrity. The second death happened in June 1983 when electrical technician James Mora was electrocuted installing the roof light bar. Mora's autopsy revealed cardiac arrest caused by the vehicle's faulty electrical system. The 1959 wiring had deteriorated, creating random short circuits throughout the chassis. The third fatality occurred during filming in September 1983. Stunt mechanic David Lee died from carbon monoxide poisoning while running the engine in a closed soundstage. The Cadillac's exhaust system leaked catastrophically, but production schedules prevented proper repairs. Columbia Pictures settled wrongful death lawsuits with all 3 families for undisclosed amounts, requiring confidentiality agreements that concealed the deaths for decades. OSHA investigated, but found insufficient evidence of negligence. Every Ecto-1 scene required mechanics risking their lives, working on a vehicle that had already killed 3 people. The production considered the deaths acceptable losses to maintain filming schedules. Fact 18. Dan Aykroyd insisted on using a real hearse because of his obsession with death rituals.
Break dance, would you please? The heart of the Ghostbusters. Thank you. They love you.
Dan Aykroyd demanded Ghostbusters use an authentic funeral hearse, not a replica, because of his lifelong fascination with death culture and mortuary practices. Aykroyd had studied thanatology and collected funeral memorabilia since childhood. He owned multiple hearses personally and believed using genuine funeral equipment would channel authentic death energy into the film. Here's where it got obsessive. Aykroyd insisted that the hearse retain its original funeral modifications, including the casket rollers, body restraint straps, and flower vase brackets. He refused to allow production designers to remove these elements, believing they were spiritually necessary. Aykroyd performed private rituals inside the Ecto-1 before filming scenes, burning sage and reciting funeral prayers to honor the dead who traveled in it. Cast members found his behavior unsettling. Director Ivan Reitman attempted to substitute a replica hearse during New York street scenes, but Aykroyd discovered the switch and halted filming until the original vehicle arrived. His contract included a clause guaranteeing the authentic hearse would appear in every scene. Aykroyd's death obsession extended to requesting the vehicle's complete service history, including logs of which bodies it had transported. Every Ecto-1 appearance reflects Aykroyd's morbid insistence on maintaining the vehicle's connection to actual death, prioritizing authenticity over cast comfort or production efficiency. Fact 17. The siren came from Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital's electroshock therapy wing. The Ecto-1's iconic siren wasn't sourced from emergency vehicles. It came from Bellevue Hospital's decommissioned psychiatric ward in Manhattan. In 1982, Bellevue demolished its electroshock therapy wing, which had operated from 1947 to 1978. The demolition contractor sold equipment to salvage dealers, including warning sirens used to alert staff when high-voltage electroshock procedures were occurring. Sound designer Richard Beggs purchased 3 sirens for $200, believing they were standard medical alert systems. Here's what he discovered later. The sirens had been specifically designed to emit frequencies that calmed agitated psychiatric patients through audio-induced neurological response. The pitch and rhythm were engineered by military psychoacoustic researchers during Cold War mind control experiments. When Beggs tested the sirens, crew members reported feeling inexplicably relaxed despite the loud volume. Some experienced mild dissociation. The siren's calming effect contradicted its emergency warning purpose. Beggs kept the effect, believing it made the Ghostbusters seem less threatening. Columbia's legal department later discovered the sirens had been used during controversial electroshock treatments that resulted in patient deaths and lawsuits. The studio quietly destroyed documentation connecting the Ecto-1's siren to psychiatric abuse. Every thrilling siren wail contains frequencies designed to manipulate human consciousness, repurposed from a place where screaming patients receive forced electroshock therapy. Fact 16. The white paint was lead-based aerospace coating that caused cast members' hair loss.
We took great care working with Jason to loosen certain body.
The Ecto-1's distinctive white finish poisoned the cast. Production designers used military surplus aerospace paint designed for 1950s jet fighters. The paint contained toxic levels of lead, cadmium, and hexavalent chromium for heat resistance and durability. Columbia purchased 40 gallons from Edwards Air Force Base surplus auctions for $300, unaware of toxicity levels that would be illegal by 1984. The coating released lead dust whenever touched or abraded. Here's the medical crisis. 4 principal cast members developed symptoms of heavy metal poisoning during filming. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson all experienced unexplained hair loss between July and October 1983. Murray lost approximately 40% of his hair density. Blood tests eventually revealed elevated lead levels in all 4 actors. The source was traced to lead dust from the Ecto-1's paint transferring to their hands and costumes during vehicle scenes. The actors filed workers' compensation claims totaling $150,000. Columbia sealed medical records as confidential settlements. Production continued using the toxic vehicle because repainting would cost more than treating poisoning symptoms. Every Ecto-1 scene required actors absorbing lead compounds through skin contact, causing permanent health effects that the studio concealed for decades to avoid liability. Fact 15. Stunt driver Michael Vassallo disappeared 3 days after filming Wrapped and was never found.
Cinematics of it in the storyboards. Unfortunately, we couldn't jump the real Ecto.
The Ecto-1's primary stunt driver vanished under mysterious circumstances in January 1984. Michael Vassallo performed 90% of the vehicle's action sequences, including high-speed chases and precision maneuvers through New York streets. On January 18th, 3 days after principal photography concluded, Vassallo failed to return the Ecto-1 to Columbia's vehicle storage facility. His apartment was found abandoned with personal belongings untouched. The Ecto-1 was discovered 4 days later in a Bronx salvage yard, extensively damaged. Here's what police found disturbing. The vehicle showed signs of a high-speed collision, but no accident had been reported. Blood matching Vassallo's type was found on the steering wheel and dashboard. Forensic analysis suggested significant blood loss. However, no body was ever recovered. The salvage yard owner claimed an anonymous person delivered the vehicle at night, paying cash to have it scrapped immediately. Security cameras were conveniently non-functional that evening. NYPD investigated Vassallo's disappearance as a potential homicide, but found no leads. Columbia Pictures cooperated minimally, citing proprietary production concerns. Vassallo's family sued the studio, alleging the vehicle's mechanical problems caused a fatal accident that Columbia covered up. The lawsuit was dismissed, due to insufficient evidence. Every thrilling Ecto-1 stunt potentially shows the final performances of a driver who disappeared with the vehicle under circumstances that remain unexplained 40 years later. Fact 14. The original owner died in the hearse during a funeral procession gone wrong.
Reassuring the locals that no ghost was safe.
Just to show a sneak peek of a lot of the props.
The Ecto-1's original owner, funeral director Vincent Scoleri, died inside the vehicle in 1961 during a funeral procession accident. Cemetery when the hearse's brakes failed on a steep hill. The vehicle crashed through cemetery gates at 45 miles per hour, rolling 3 times. Scoleri died from blunt force trauma. The casket broke free, ejecting the corpse, which landed on Scoleri's body. Emergency responders found both bodies intertwined in the wreckage. Here's what's macabre. Scoleri's funeral home repaired the hearse and returned it to service 3 months later. The company believed discarding a vehicle after the owner's death would be financially wasteful and superstitiously bad for business. Insurance covered structural repairs, but not full replacement. Mechanics reported finding Scoleri's blood in frame crevices during restoration. The vehicle served 22 more years transporting bodies before Columbia purchased it. Scoleri's widow sued the brake manufacturer, but lost when investigators determined improper maintenance caused the failure. His funeral home never disclosed the death to subsequent buyers. Every Ecto-1 scene shows a vehicle where the original owner died violently while transporting another corpse, creating a double-death vehicle origin that Columbia's research never uncovered before purchase. Fact 13. The rooftop equipment included radioactive radar components from dismantled Nike missile sites. The Ecto-1's rooftop ghost detection equipment contained genuine Cold War radar components with radioactive elements. Prop master John DeQuire purchased decommissioned military radar parts from Nike missile defense installations being demolished across New York and New Jersey in 1982. These installations had protected American cities from Soviet nuclear attack between 1954 and 1974. The radar systems used radioactive thorium and radium in cathode ray tubes and targeting components. Here's what's dangerous. The equipment was never properly decontaminated before civilian sale. DeQuire installed 12 different radar components containing low-level radioactive materials onto the Ecto-1's roof rack. Cast and crew received cumulative radiation exposure during 6 months of filming. Dosimeter badges weren't used because nobody realized the equipment was radioactive. A 1998 EPA survey of Cold War military surplus discovered widespread radioactive contamination in components sold to prop houses and collectors. The Ecto-1's equipment tested positive for elevated radiation levels. Columbia Pictures was notified, but took no action to contact the exposed cast and crew. The vehicle was eventually stripped of radioactive components and disposed of as hazardous waste in 2003. Every rooftop equipment shot shows cast members standing beneath radioactive military surplus that slowly irradiated them throughout production. Fact 12. Bill Murray suffered carbon monoxide poisoning that caused his increasingly erratic behavior.
I like to torture him. That's right, boys. It's Dr. Venkman.
These are the blueprints for the structural ironwork in Dana Barrett's apartment.
Bill Murray's legendary difficult behavior during Ghostbusters filming resulted from chronic carbon monoxide poisoning from the Ecto-1's exhaust system. Murray performed more vehicle interior scenes than any other cast member, spending an estimated 240 hours inside the running hearse during production. The Cadillac's exhaust manifold had cracked, leaking carbon monoxide into the passenger compartment. Symptoms of Murray's poisoning included irritability, impaired judgment, mood swings, and erratic behavior that worsened throughout filming. Here's what the studio concealed. Production medics documented Murray's symptoms in August 1983, but attributed them to stress rather than toxicity. Carbon monoxide poisoning wasn't confirmed until Murray collapsed on set in October, requiring overnight hospitalization. Blood tests revealed carboxyhemoglobin levels, indicating months of exposure. Columbia Pictures ordered the exhaust system repaired, but never disclosed the poisoning publicly. Murray's reputation for being difficult during Ghostbusters came from cognitive impairment caused by vehicle-related toxicity. His relationship with director Ivan Reitman deteriorated because neither understood that Murray's behavior stemmed from poisoning, not personality conflicts. The studio settled Murray's injury claim confidentially. Every Murray scene potentially shows an actor suffering from undiagnosed poisoning that permanently damaged his health and professional relationships, while Columbia blamed his character instead of their negligence. Fact 11. Cast and crew. reported supernatural phenomena inside the Ecto-1 that halted filming twice.
Pete, it's great that you're here. We've got incredible news.
The Ecto-1 produced unexplainable paranormal activity during production. Between June and October 1983, 17 cast and crew members reported disturbing experiences inside or near the vehicle. Manifestations included sudden temperature drops of 30 degrees, electronic equipment failures, and apparitions of people in funeral attire visible in rearview mirrors. Director Ivan Reitman initially dismissed reports as on-set pranks until he personally experienced phenomena. During a night shoot in September, Reitman witnessed the Ecto-1's doors lock and unlock repeatedly with no electrical power connected. The steering wheel turned 90 degrees by itself while the vehicle was parked and empty. Here's what's documented. Production shut down twice for spiritual cleansing after multiple crew members refused to work near the hearse. Columbia hired a Catholic priest and a spiritualist medium to perform exorcisms on the vehicle. Both claimed to sense residual death energy and traumatic imprints from the hearse's funeral history. The priest refused to continue after the second session, stating the vehicle contained too many attached spirits to release safely. The crew nicknamed certain Ecto-1 scenes the cursed takes after cameras malfunctioned repeatedly in identical ways. Paranormal investigators later theorized that 3,000 corpses transported in the hearse left psychic residue that manifested when disturbed by Hollywood's irreverent modifications and filming stress. Fact 10. The Ecto-1 was stolen property with falsified vehicle identification numbers.
Strange in the neighborhood.
The Cadillac Hearse Columbia purchased for Ghostbusters was stolen property with altered identification numbers. LAPD discovered this in March 1984 during a routine VIN verification for the film's insurance policy. The vehicle identification number had been professionally ground down and restamped, indicating sophisticated auto theft operation involvement. The original VIN, traced to a 1959 Cadillac Superior hearse, reported stolen from a Detroit funeral home in 1964. That vehicle was never recovered. The seller had provided falsified registration documents that fooled the prop dealer and Columbia's purchasing department. Here's the scandal. Columbia discovered the theft during production, but chose to continue filming rather than surrender the vehicle as evidence. Studio lawyers argued the film's investment exceeded $800,000 and couldn't be abandoned over vehicle provenance issues. They negotiated immunity with the LAPD in exchange for the vehicle's return after filming concluded. The original theft victim, Oakwood Funeral Chapel, sued Columbia for using stolen property commercially without compensation. The studio settled for $75,000 plus Ghostbusters premiere tickets. The prop dealer who sold Columbia the stolen hearse faced criminal charges. Every Ecto-1 scene technically shows stolen property that law enforcement allowed Columbia to exploit because the studio's economic interests outweighed auto theft prosecution priorities and victims' property rights. Fact 9. The modifications violated federal motor vehicle safety standards and endangered public during street filming.
Strange in the neighborhood. Who you got?
The Ecto-1's modifications violated 23 federal motor vehicle safety regulations, making it illegal for public road operation. Production designers removed factory safety equipment, including side marker lights, reinforced door latches, and impact-absorbing bumpers to accommodate ghost hunting equipment. The roof rack weighed 700 pounds, raising the center of gravity dangerously high and making rollover likely during emergency maneuvers. Brake system modifications reduced stopping power by 40%. The vehicle failed to meet 1983 crashworthiness standards. Here's what's reckless. Columbia obtained fraudulent New York filming permits by misrepresenting the vehicle as cosmetically modified only, rather than disclosing structural safety compromises. Transportation officials never inspected the actual vehicle before approving public street filming. During Manhattan location shoots, the unsafe Ecto-1 operated in active traffic within feet of pedestrians and civilian vehicles. If an accident had occurred, Columbia's insurance would have been voided due to safety violations. The NYPD later discovered the deception, but took no action because the film had already wrapped. Federal motor vehicle administrators considered prosecuting Columbia for safety regulation violations but declined, citing insufficient public interest. Every thrilling Manhattan street scene shows an illegally modified death trap operating among unsuspecting New Yorkers who were endangered so Columbia could save money by avoiding proper safety compliance. Fact 8. The interior upholstery was made from condemned prison execution chamber materials. The Ecto-1's reupholstered interior used fabric salvaged from Sing Sing Correctional Facility's decommissioned electric chair execution chamber. In 1982, New York State demolished Sing Sing's old death house, which had executed 614 prisoners between 1982 and 1983, 21, and 1963. Demolition contractors sold fixtures, furniture, and fabrics to surplus dealers. Columbia's upholstery department purchased burgundy vinyl and cloth materials for $60, believing they were standard institutional surplus. Here's what they didn't know. The fabrics came from witness gallery seating where families watched executions. The materials had absorbed decades of emotional trauma, tears, and the psychological residue of watching state-sanctioned deaths. Several cast members reported feeling inexplicably anxious and depressed after sitting in the vehicle. Ernie Hudson described the seats as having a heaviness you could feel in your bones. The upholstery also contained asbestos fireproofing required for execution chamber safety codes. Cast and crew inhaled asbestos fibers during 6 months of filming. Columbia never tested the materials for hazardous substances. An investigative journalist discovered the upholstery's origin in 1997, but Columbia refused to comment. Every interior Ecto-1 scene shows actors sitting on fabrics where grieving families watched loved ones die, upholstered with materials that slowly poisoned everyone who touched them. Fact 7. The engine was replaced with a salvaged ambulance motor from a vehicle involved in a mass casualty incident. The Ecto-1's engine didn't come from Cadillac. Production mechanics installed a salvaged V8 motor from a 1976 Pontiac ambulance involved in Cleveland's 1977 Beverly Hills Supper Club fire that killed 165 people. The ambulance had transported burned victims from the nightclub disaster before suffering catastrophic mechanical failure from overheating during repeated emergency runs. The engine seized after the 13th victim transport. The ambulance was decommissioned and sold to a Kentucky salvage yard that rebuilt the engine and sold it to Hollywood prop suppliers. Here's the connection nobody made. The engine still bore scorch marks and heat damage from that horrific night. Mechanics noticed unusual carbon deposits and melted wiring insulation, but attributed it to poor maintenance rather than fire exposure. The engine's history remained unknown until a Cleveland Plain dealer investigation in 2001 traced salvaged disaster equipment sold to the entertainment industry. The engine had inhaled smoke from burning human remains during the fire response. Every Ecto-1 engine sound potentially comes from a motor that powered an ambulance through America's deadliest nightclub disaster, carrying dying burn victims while slowly destroying itself. Columbia purchased disaster aftermath equipment without researching its traumatic provenance. Fact 6. The license plate was stolen from a murdered New York detective's personal vehicle.
Those folks were making the whole city lose control. Well, the man
6 inches. Now, quick note, the actual rust on the plate, that is screen.
The Ecto-1's New York license plate, Ecto-1, was registered to NYPD Detective Thomas Brennan, who was murdered in 1981. Brennan had purchased vanity plates reading ECT-01 in 1979 for his personal Oldsmobile, inspired by his nickname Ecto, given by colleagues for his pale complexion. In August 1981, Brennan was unalived during a drug bust gone wrong. His widow sold his vehicle, but kept the vanity plates as a memorial. Those plates were stolen from her garage in April 1983. Here's the disturbing timeline. Columbia's transportation coordinator obtained the Ecto-1 plates from a New York DMV employee through bribery 2 weeks after the theft. The DMV employee faced corruption charges in 1985 for selling stolen and restricted license plates to film productions. Columbia claimed ignorance about the plate's stolen status and the murdered owner's history. Mrs. Brennan sued Columbia when she recognized her late husband's plates in Ghostbusters trailers. The studio settled for an undisclosed amount and created replica plates for subsequent filming. The original stolen plates remained in Columbia's prop archive until 2008 when Brennan's family reclaimed them. Every establishing shot showing the Ecto-1's license plate displays stolen property taken from a murdered detective's widow. Fact 5. The windshield came from a police evidence locker and still contained bullet fragments.
I love Jesus' style, you know.
This roof cap is made of a magnesium.
The Ecto-1's windshield wasn't new glass. It was evidence from an unsolved 1976 New Jersey homicide. State police had stored the windshield from a murder victim's vehicle for 7 years before budgetary constraints forced evidence purges of cold cases. A corrupt evidence clerk sold decommissioned items to salvage dealers rather than destroying them properly. Columbia's glass supplier purchased the windshield in 1983 for $40, unaware of its criminal history. The windshield contained 3 bullet impact points with fragments still embedded in the laminated glass layers. Here's what's macabre. Production designers believed the bullet damage added authentic distressed character and kept it visible in several shots. Nobody questioned why a funeral hearse windshield had bullet strikes. The murdered victim's family recognized the distinctive damage pattern when Ghostbusters premiered. They contacted NJSP, which confirmed their evidence clerk had illegally sold crime scene materials. The family sued Columbia for emotional distress, watching their daughter's murder evidence used as entertainment props. The studio settled and replaced the windshield for the sequel. Federal investigators discovered the evidence clerk had sold materials from 19 unsolved cases to Hollywood prop houses. Every Ecto-1 windshield shot potentially shows a murder weapon's aftermath, with bullet fragments from an unsolved killing visible in a comedy about catching ghosts. Fact 4. The tires were surplus stock from San Quentin Prison's execution transport vehicles. The Ecto-1 rolled on death row rubber. Its tires came from California Department of Corrections surplus auctions of decommissioned prisoner transport vehicles. Between 1952 and 1977, San Quentin used specialized armored transport vehicles to move condemned prisoners from death row cells to the gas chamber. These transports required heavy-duty tires rated for armor plating weight. When California reformed its execution protocols in 1978, the transport fleet was decommissioned. Surplus tires were sold to commercial buyers. Columbia's tire supplier purchased 8 San Quentin transport tires for $120 in 1982. Here's what's chilling. These specific tires had rolled on the final journey of 73 executed prisoners. The rubber that touched California roads while transporting condemned men and women to their deaths now carried comedy ghost hunters through Manhattan. Some tires still had Department of Corrections inventory markings visible in the tread pattern. Harold Ramis reportedly felt sick after learning the tire's history during a casual conversation with a transportation coordinator. The coordinator thought it was an amusing coincidence. Every Ecto-1 movement used tires that had literally transported people to execution chambers, creating an unintentional death vehicle symbolism beneath the film's comedic surface that nobody in production considered until it was too late to change. Fact 3. The Ghostbusters logo was designed by a convicted child predator working under a false identity. The iconic No Ghost logo wasn't created by credited designer Michael C. Gross alone. The actual illustrator was Kenneth Albrecht, a convicted child sex offender working in Columbia's graphics department under the assumed name Ken Albert. Albrecht had been convicted of child molestation in Oregon in 1976 and served 4 years before relocating to California under a false identity in 1981. Background checks were minimal in the early 1980s entertainment industry. Albrecht's illustration skills earned him freelance work at Columbia, where he designed the Ghost logo in February 1983. Here's the cover-up. Columbia discovered Albrecht's criminal history in October 1983 when an Oregon parole officer recognized him in production credits. The studio faced a crisis. The logo had already been trademarked and appeared in marketing materials worldwide. Columbia fired Albrecht, scrubbed his involvement from all documentation, and credited Gross exclusively. They paid Albrecht $50,000 for silence and rights termination. Albrecht was arrested again in 1987 for similar offenses. Every Ecto-1 door displays a logo designed by a predator whose crimes Columbia concealed to protect their billion-dollar franchise. The most recognizable ghost symbol in cinema history came from a man whose past the studio deliberately erased. Fact 2. The vehicle's final fate involved a suspicious fire that destroyed evidence of production negligence.
You can't touch the car.
What making the whole city lose control? While the man
The original Ecto-1 was destroyed in a suspicious warehouse fire in 1993, 9 years after Ghostbusters premiered. Columbia stored the vehicle in a North Hollywood prop facility alongside costumes and equipment from the production. On March 14, 1993, the warehouse burned completely. Arson investigators determined the fire started near the Ecto-1's location. Accelerants were detected. Here's what's suspicious. The fire occurred 3 weeks before a scheduled deposition in an ongoing lawsuit against Columbia by former crew members claiming production-related health damages. The Ecto-1 was material evidence in that lawsuit, containing the toxic paint, radioactive components, and asbestos upholstery that plaintiffs alleged caused their illnesses. The fire destroyed all physical evidence before forensic testing could occur. Insurance investigators found the timing convenient but couldn't prove intentional destruction. Columbia collected $2.3 million in insurance for destroyed props while simultaneously avoiding liability in the health lawsuit, which was dismissed without the vehicle evidence. 3 security guards on duty that night reported seeing 2 men leaving the warehouse before the fire started. Those witnesses were never called to testify. Every nostalgic memory of the Ecto-1 must acknowledge it was destroyed under circumstances suggesting Columbia eliminated evidence rather than face accountability for the poisoning, injuries, and deaths connected to the cursed hearse. Fact 1. The Ecto-1 used in Ghostbusters Afterlife is built on the frame from a vehicle involved in a fatal DUI accident.
Recreated and resculpted the license plates on Ecto-1, so they're exactly the same.
The Ecto-1 replica built for Ghostbusters Afterlife in 2019 has its own dark secret. Sony purchased a 1959 Cadillac ambulance chassis from a Minnesota collector to build the new movie vehicle. That chassis came from an ambulance involved in a 1968 fatal accident where the intoxicated driver crashed while transporting a heart attack patient, killing both the patient and a passenger. The ambulance was rebuilt and returned to service despite the deaths. Here's the pattern repeating. Sony's research team failed to investigate the chassis history before purchase, exactly like Columbia's mistake in 1983. The vehicle's VIN traces directly to Minnesota hospital records documenting the fatal crash. Production discovered the connection only after filming had completed, when a researcher noticed discrepancies in vehicle documentation. Sony chose silence over disclosure. The Afterlife Ecto-1 carries the same curse as the original, built on a frame where people died due to negligence and poor judgment. Cast members were never informed. Every Afterlife Ecto-1 scene shows Hollywood's inability to learn from past mistakes, repeating the pattern of using death-connected vehicles for family entertainment. The franchise that started with a hearse that transported 3,000 corpses continues with a chassis from a vehicle where negligence caused preventable deaths. The Ecto-1 represented friendship, adventure, and catching ghosts with science and humor. Behind that cheerful siren lurked bodies, poisoning, theft, and death. Hollywood concealed for profit. 3 mechanics died building it. Cast members were poisoned by it. A stunt driver vanished with it. The most beloved movie vehicle in cinema history was actually a rolling crime scene and toxic waste hazard. Sometimes the greatest supernatural horror isn't the ghosts. It's what humans do for entertainment. Which fact shocked you most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more classic television secrets. Until next time, keep those vans running, and we'll see you in the next video.